Welcome to the LifeBeat Podcast, a One Joshua Group production, providing access to information and experts to improve quality of life and health outcomes.
Hello, I'm Kermit Payne, your host for LifeBeat, the podcast series. Today, we're going to take a look at artificial intelligence, data analytics, and we are extremely excited to have a very special guest with us, Dr. Talitha Washington, who is the Executive Director at the Howard University Center for Applied Data Science and Analytics. And in Dr. Washington's role at the center, she is responsible for helping us understand better what data science, artificial intelligence are, and how we can use those to improve our life and health outcomes. Dr. Washington, thank you so very much for joining us.
It's great to be here, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to be here as well. Now, Dr. Washington's research includes applied mathematics, systems, data science, artificial intelligence, and a very important component in that STEM education. Dr. Washington received her academic training at Spelman College and also at the University of Connecticut. Dr. Washington, tell us about the center at Howard University, and congratulations. I guess it's a relatively new job. So tell us what you're doing in that new center and in your new role as executive director.
Well, at Howard University, I'm the executive director for the Center for Applied Data Science Analytics. So it's a center where we have faculty involved from across the campus, from education to medicine to English to mathematics. You know, because when we think about data science, it really is a field that involves all disciplines. And so with our center, we also have a master's program. It's an online degree program in applied data science analytics, where we position students to really tackle some important challenges through data. And our students go off into either PhD programs, working for nonprofits, working for for-profits, and really just provides a good platform for them to be successful in what they're doing next.
So we thank you for the work that you're doing. And we want to be sure that for our audience, and we have a broad spectrum of viewers and listeners, how will the work at the data science at your center improve our lives, both in academia and at the community level?
That's a great question, because things are happening and changing so quickly with data science, analytics, artificial intelligence. All these technologies are driving different ways in which we live, work, and play. Right. So we have an Apple Watch that takes all of our biometric data. What do we do with that health data? How can we leverage that to provide better treatment outcomes? When we have data about our community, about the environment, how can we use that data to figure out how we can live and perhaps even breathe better? And then also thinking about different ways that we can leverage data to provide insights, maybe to opportunities that exist where we can develop communities and bring really some economic prosperity to different communities and different endeavors. And so when we think about the different challenges, it really is thinking about how can we make a difference in the world? How can we bring forward solutions and do it in a way that promotes stewardship?
Mm-hmm. So, and thank you for bringing that forward. You tell us we have the data, we have the science, we have the technology. So we need to move that from a state of being passive in that and better understand how we can incorporate all of those elements into improving how we are as individuals, how we access information from a business side, from a personal side, professionally, but most of all, it improves what we do. You mentioned your watch and apps and these new kinds of activities, your phone. How does that integrate into uh, a lay understanding of data, science, technology, and improving how we live? daily? How do we better incorporate those elements?
And to be frank, the technology is changing so rapidly. We're figuring that out as we're moving along quickly. How
Mm.
do these apps better our world? One thing right now, as we enter into the fall semester, I can't believe it's almost August. Oh, but many of us are thinking about when we have this AI technology, how do we promote, develop critical thinking in this age of
Mm.
AI? How can we leverage
Mhm.
AI to do just that?
Mhm.
And so for me, data science and AI analytics, they'll go together because when you have large amounts of data, how do we learn from that data? We employ machine learning, deep
Mhm.
learning, AI tools and technology to really help us figure out these, I'll say, big data sets. So,
Mhm.
in going back and thinking about what will happen in the classroom this fall, as a mathematician, we had I guess you call it a technological disruption called the calculator that came into classes. The TI-80 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 calculator in many of our mathematics departments, mathematicians, mathematics is the queen
Mhm.
of all sciences, but in many mathematics departments, we had a lot of discussions and almost sometimes cat fights about when should we use a calculator? How should we use it? Wait, we can ask different questions. What should those questions be? With the intention of promoting and developing critical thinking. Now we're
Mhm.
having that same discussion around AI. It's not just
Mhm.
one discipline, it's all disciplines. So
Mhm.
there's a real, I think, an urgent need, and I'll say an urgent call to really generate some evidence-based practices on how do we incorporate AI into learning? How do we incorporate it into our lives so it can augment human behavior, not replace, but augment? How
Mhm.
can it help us do more, do better in a
Mhm.
way that's still makes sense. And so there are a lot of questions that are coming as we have new technology being more readily available to larger amounts of folks. Because we have a lot of power just in that little cell
Mhm.
phone there. And so, how do we harness that power? How do we use it to really make our everyday lives better? And then, how do we
Mhm.
use it in a way that we don't become what I'd like to call AI zombies, where
Mhm.
we're just going through and not really thinking about what's happening, but we really still are learned individuals. We're seekers of knowledge. We're thinking critically about what is, what isn't, and all the things in between.
Mhm.
And we use AI data and analytics just as a way to understand our world, to understand how we live, to understand uh, what's happening bank account or not, to understand
Mhm.
what's happening in my body, what's happening
Mhm.
in the world, the communities that we live, the communities that we serve. So data analytics and AI can be very powerful tools. And I always like to say, let's use them for good. Let's use them to
Mhm.
promote good.
So we're going to talk about the ethics component in just a second, but I wanted to just sidestep and let us hear from you about your involvement in STEM and STEM education so that we can better prepare those people not from where we are now. I have no idea where we're going with AI. I mean, it's a little, so what do we do from a STEM education perspective for people who are thinking about that, for parents, for aunts, uncles, grandparents? We kind of moved away from STEM discussion for a minute, but it looks like we need to go back again and talk to students and faculty about how we make STEM education more important. Tell us about your involvement in STEM and what does that do to take us toward machine learning and those elements?
So I think people think STEM is something over there, right? STEM is
Mm-hmm.
science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But when you think about trying to figure out, I remember when I was in third grade, I did a project on clouds, right? Because as a kid, you would look up at the clouds. There are so many different types of clouds. They form in different ways. They have different levels, and I was just fascinated about how they could form. So just looking up at the sky, I didn't realize I was doing atmospheric sciences at that
Mm-hmm.
point, right? But but just looking at the world through the lens with curiosity. What
Mm-hmm.
makes a cloud a cloud? Why does that form? Why does it rain? How are measurements done? I used to love reading back in the day when we actually had physical Sunday papers,
Mhm.
and they would have the sketches of the houses to look at I like looking at the geometry of the floor
Mhm.
plans. But I didn't know that was geometry. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes we think STEM has to be something artificial and extra, which it doesn't. There's a lot of science, technology, engineering, and math in our everyday life if you just kind of lead with curiosity, right? What makes a car go? You got some mechanics going on as well as some other things. Looking at the geometry of buildings, looking at the different shapes and volumes and dimensions. What makes things go? So it really is when I think about STEM and how do we promote the curiosity in young folks so they do ask questions and they're kind of like, well, what makes that work? Why does that work? Well, what about that part is connected to this part over here? And so just asking questions and being okay with not knowing, but having
Mhm.
that spirit of keep learning and again, leading with curiosity. I don't think the
Mhm.
STEM discussion has went away. I think with artificial intelligence, we've had it around for decades, plural, but now
Mhm.
everybody has it, and people are trying to think, well, now what, and how, and where, and all the WHs that go along with
Mhm.
it. It's fun and it's exciting, but I don't think the STEM had. I don't, but of course I'm biased, right? Mathematician, so I'm biased. And so I don't think the STEM has went away. I think that
Mhm.
we just now have this new tool that has landed in the
Mhm.
hands of a lot of folks. That now what?
Yeah. I want to be sure that we add the arts in that STEM. There is a new piece that's AI generated that Sotheby's has. It's a couple of $1 million. It does not have an original author as an artist, and they say that it will be the Van Gogh of the future. So, sort of make sure I put a plug in the arts for where we're going to go with artificial intelligence and that important part. Now, from STEM to critical thinking, tell us the important part around critical thinking and understanding data sets and artificial intelligence.
So when we think about critical thinking, it's just, can you ask the questions? Can you learn? Can you search
Mhm.
for answers? Can you read and really pull things apart? And so when we think about data, you can think about data having different forms. Data for
Mhm.
me, my opinion, right? Data is an undefined term, just like point is or line. If I describe what a point is, then you get the point. Good. Okay. That was a math joke. Okay. But it's an undefined term. I have to tell you what it is that we can agree about what it
Mhm.
is. Data in that is that same spirit. Where data could be numbers, it could be text, it could be images,
Mhm.
it could be stuff in a bag, it could be right. We can go on and on. And so once we describe what that data is, now we can talk about, well, now how do we address it? Do we employ a scientific method approach to it?
Mhm.
Meaning you formulate a hypothesis, do the background research, carry out the research, and share it. So employing the scientific method, then we're doing data science. Are we
Mhm.
looking at addressing a business problem? Are we looking at a case, and we're answering and providing a solution that's data driven? Now we're in data analytics. Or are we looking at, do we have a bunch of text data? Maybe I'm pulling down a bunch of Twitter data and I want to do a text analytics to see what's going on. Or I want to do digitization of
Mhm.
artifacts and works, and I want to tag it in a way that makes sense. And then I want to create this whole database. Now I'm entering into the digital humanities, right?
Mhm.
And I could go on. And so we're seeing this data being used, I'll say analyzed in different ways, depending
Mhm.
on what you're analyzing, the field it's in, and what kind of questions you want to ask. So you could have a data set, and
Mhm.
depending on the question you ask, that will govern how you approach the data and will also guide you, hopefully, on how you can carry out the analysis. And sometimes it's not clear how to carry out the analysis until you kind of get in and get your hands dirty with the data.
It's August, and that means it's back to school time. Whether you're a kindergartner with a brand new backpack, a middle schooler ready to dive into science experiments, or a high schooler dreaming big about college, careers, and changing the world, this is your time to shine. Parents, let's help our kids start strong, talk about goals, set a routine, and remind them school isn't just about tests, it's about discovery, creativity, and connection. Encourage new activities, making new friends, and learning new skills. Each school year is a fresh start full of big possibilities. So sharpen those pencils, grab those notebooks, and let's step into the classroom with confidence, curiosity, and courage. Let's make this school year the best one yet.
So you just demonstrated for us that AI does not eliminate critical thinking. It actually enhances a greater need for critical thinking. And that's why I believe I won't use chat GPT, because it's trademarked for people who don't get the answers because they don't know how to ask the question. So they get a response exactly to the question that they ask, rather than pulling the information apart to really think about what it is they want to know. So throughput to that is we've gotten all of this information, this data, and we click on all of these buttons in whatever device we're using, and the doctor gives us a Holter monitor or gives us a watch or something else, and we decide that we're not going to use it because it's collecting all of this information about us and we don't know what it's going to be used for. So that is an obstacle that we are going to work to not overcome, but to have a better understanding. So what do we do about being apprehensive about sharing this data and the biases? And we'll come back and talk about the bias in the data in just a minute. But what do we do about not feeling free to provide that information without so much reluctance?
So data security and privacy, it's a thing, right? That we put so much data out there. If you're involved in technology, right? So there's a conditional statement in there. If you're involved in technology, if you're online, if you're doing a Google search, a Bing search, if you're going on Facebook, if you're going on different platforms, if you have an Apple Watch, that sort of thing. You may be giving information, either the websites that you go to, the keystrokes that you do, your heart rate with the exercise. Trying to hit my calorie counts these days. But anyway, that's another story. And then also recognizing that companies sell your data to each other. So that way they collect your data as a primary collector, but they may also purchase data on you from other companies, put that together. So now they can figure out, well, what do you want to purchase? What do you want to do? And again, I'm coming at this from a positive angle, but there can also be negative angles where it's people have leveraged data to sway people to vote a certain way by providing, I'll say, different types of information. And so people can use this to manipulate. So to your point, we have to be cognizant of not only how our data we're giving it out, what does our digital footprint look like? I try to Google myself every so often to figure out what that looks like. And really be stewards, be conscientious of what we're looking at. Because, as you were saying, as you go on ChatGPT and you put in your information and it gives out stuff, what's happening underneath the hood, there's a probability happening. Right. So probability is never 100%. It probably could be. It's somewhere between 0 and 100% sort of thing, 0%, 100%. So what's happening with chat is there's a probabilistic model that's kind of making the switches as to what things should be or where things should go. And that probability is never 100%, just like with the weather. The person on TV says, oh, it's going to be up to 95 degrees and no rain. You go outside and it's raining. It's because the weather's built on a probabilistic model. It's a high
Hmm.
probability, but it can't be certain. That's the
Hmm.
same thing we get from these AI models, that it's not always 100% true. And that's why we
Hmm.
really need that critical thinking to say,
Hmm.
oh, is this garbage? But then also, did I put in garbage, right? Garbage in,
Hmm.
garbage out. But I could put in
Exactly.
something, a great prompt or great input data, and then get some craziness out. And that craziness out, it could be because of the model or because of the information that's being, we'll say, processed in the model, or maybe it could be the grounding data. The data, there's just not enough data to give what I wanted, or maybe I didn't give it the right thing. So we really
Hmm.
have to be cognizant about how and what we're using. But then
Hmm.
also, we don't want to become parrots, maybe AI parrots, where we're just regurgitating what's on
Hmm.
AI, but no real deep thought about what it is, what it means, and where it is.
Hmm.
And so I can tell when people use the AI, but they haven't thought about some critical questions, because I ask like
Hmm.
these open-ended questions and they'll get caught like, I need for you to think about this, right?
Right.
you know, need you to be that human in the loop, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so I cheat. I go across multiple platforms and use the same prompts just because I'm curious to see, why do you say this? And as you said, looking under the hood. So I'm probably more curious about why I get different information, but much more so why I get such similar information, regardless of what platforms, you use to use your prompt to get a response. So
But
it's important.
multiple platforms some of them are driven by the same models,
Same
right? So
by
they
the
may
same
have the
model,
same
right.
engine
Mhm.
underneath the hood, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where you get similar information, but it depends on how that model's built, what data
Mhm.
that model's accessing, in addition to the data you
Mhm.
give it, because it may be able to access, let's say, your files, or maybe not, or may be able to access stuff online, or maybe
Mhm.
not. So what data can it input? And then
Mhm.
how is it processing that data? That model will tell about the processing. And,
Mhm.
modeling, it's all applied math. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, all this AI stuff, it's applied math. It's probabilistic models. You got functions, you got inputs, outputs.
You do say that as a mathematician and as a scientist, right? That it's all applied math. So
It's all applied math. But when
it's
you
all
look at,
applied
so I
math,
went to a
right.
training. I just popped up in Reston, Virginia,
Mhm.
at the Microsoft offices. I talked with our Microsoft partner
Mhm.
here at Howard. They've been great partners with us. And I just kind of showed up, had no idea. I just made it through
Mhm.
the traffic, and it was like, oh, the only seat that were left was on the front row. So was that student like begrudgingly sat on the front row.
Mhm.
Luckily, there was coffee. But when he started, he said, all this AI is just applied math. We got vectors, we got
Mhm.
matrices, we got inputs, outputs, we got functions. It was
Mhm.
like heaven, like the heavens opened up. It was, yeah. So I was like, oh, this is why it makes sense to me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I'm, was on a dissertation committee in computer
Mhm.
science here at Howard on somebody who looked at image processing. And so image processing is one of the, looking at image detections and
Mhm.
how do you actually take an image and digitize it. That's what it's
So
fun.
you so this is the $1 million question today as we talk about data and um, the collective of information. So where do you think AI is going to take healthcare? And is that the big horizon, or is that in finance, or where is a big horizon of data and artificial intelligence as a mathematician and as a scientist?
I think right now we're trying to figure out how to power it. So
Mhm.
I think there's a call for how do we come up with energy solutions so we can power these, we'll call them data centers, right? Last week, the uh, the White House put out the AI action plan to take action in AI. Part
Mhm.
of that was data center. Part of that was upskilling,
Mhm.
both in education and also those in the workforce to bring it about. But then also a call for industry partnerships. So
Mhm.
it's how to repower it. You got to plug it into something right
Into
now.
something, right?
Right. So you can have an AI model just run on your computer, right? Closed on your computer. There's no high power or what have you. But you can also have models that, I'll say eat a lot of power. So how do we do that? Is nuclear energy the answer? Is it something else? I'm not sure. But then also with the AI technology, how is it going to evolve, right? I remember the other week I was at the UNCF Unite conference in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, where are we going to be at in 10 years? And so luckily I was the last panelist. And I said, we're going to talk about something else. We're not going to talk about
Yeah.
AI. So in
Yeah.
10 years, it will be something else. And if we
Mm-hmm.
can figure out the whole energy aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
also if we can figure out quantum computing. So quantum computing is going to change the game. If we can, get all that stuff stable and situated, how will that power up AI? And maybe we'll have something else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we need investments in those
Mm-hmm.
fundamental research that will really provide the foundation. So to make those connections. So sometimes we support this fundamental research without really understanding where or what
Mm-hmm.
it will go. But I know maybe a couple decades ago, people didn't think AI would be here right now at this
Mm-hmm. Right
stage.
now. Mm-hmm.
Right. But people were having chatbots
Mm-hmm.
then. People were doing
Mm-hmm.
AI then. They were doing
Mm-hmm.
machine learning then without really understanding where it would go later. That's why we need the
Mm-hmm.
investment in fundamental research, in particular at universities. Not that I'm
Yeah.
biased.
I remember thinking that quantum computing was something over there. I mean, that was way, you'd sit in these classes and you're like, okay, well, I'm not so sure that impacts me right now. I've got a minute to think about that. And I remembered having a professor say, if you're thinking that way, you're already behind. So I do have a question, and I'm going to read this question because I want to be sure that I get all of the commas and all of the semicolons in this question. And you touched on this and says, how can public-private partnerships ensure that the benefits of the emerging data technologies are distributed fairly, especially for historically marginalized groups? I didn't want to mess that up, so I read it.
That's a lot going on there
It
in that
is.
question. And how do you know what's fair?
Yeah.
I don't, I don't know how to exactly answer that question. So I'll do like any good politician will do
Mm-hmm.
and give an answer that hopefully will be in that direction. Because fair, it depends on the view of the person, each
Mm-hmm.
individual person. And how do we know it's
Mm-hmm.
even really fair, right? I think same thing. What's right? What's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
It could change. Oh, and so I'll just give some examples. Like a few weeks ago, Amazon Web Services, they have, or I'll say they still have it, right? They had an internal training program where they would train up Amazon employees on
Mm-hmm.
different AI, ML, and technologies. And so they said, well, hey, why don't we open up this training and train faculty to
Faculty.
on this curriculum so that they can bring it to their students. AWS has cloud credits, and I know we have cloud credits at Howard. Other HBCUs do as well. And so the idea is, they said, look, let's just take the hard problem, bring faculty together. And they also have an executive group where they just provide training in their curriculum. So in June, we hosted I think we had 60 in person, 200 total faculty from a variety of HBCUs and other schools as well. I think it was 35 schools, maybe 29 were from HBCUs. But it was a chance for the folks to really dive into how is Amazon thinking about AI?
Mm-hmm.
And what sort of ways can I learn from this and then take that, turn around this fall and embed it into what I'm teaching
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm doing? So we had 40 of our faculty and staff from Howard participate, anywhere from computer science to the executive director of our health sciences library, to business, to modern foreign languages. We had a whole, I think, a nice cross section of folks in there,
Mm-hmm.
pharmacy, math. And so the idea is they wanted to have this engagement to share this curriculum so that we could just, think about different ways of teaching. So that's one
Mm-hmm.
example, is to have a real partnership, a real knowledge share going back and forth. And then also Google is working with HBCUs around research on AI. Like, how do you create tools, techniques, technologies to figure out that AI really understands some of the cultural nuances
Mm-hmm.
in the models, in the inputs and the outputs. So they've made that investment to really just partner with HBCs as research partnerships
Mm-hmm.
on what I think is a hard problem. And so there
Mm-hmm.
are companies who are saying, you know what, let's partner together and be thought leaders in
Mm-hmm.
this. And we need more of that, right? We need more of those opportunities so that our faculty can be connected. Because if you can impact one faculty member, the impact that they have on students is just amplified even further.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they can bring that to the classrooms, they can bring that to research experiences for all students, and really just make the environment bigger. So we're really, I think, fortunate to have partnerships with different companies, different industries to
Mm-hmm.
bring that AI, the industry aligned
Mm-hmm.
curriculum, as they call it, into our classrooms. And really excited about what will be taught this fall.
Well, we've been talking with Dr. Talitha Washington of the Howard University. By way of Clark Atlanta University. I want to make sure that I said that. And by way of Atlanta, I want to
The
make sure that I said
illustrious.
that as well. The illustrious, but I want to make sure that I got that in since we're Atlanta based. So, Dr.
And
Washington,
don't forget the Spelman grad.
I did say that earlier.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
did.
I just had to say it
I,
again. It
I
comes
said that
out. You know,
first.
that's Spelman grad,
I
class of
did.
'96. Okay.
I
The
hear you.
Olympic
We got
class. Mhm.
that. So, final words. And we could have a whole day of talking about this. I think you could have 2 days, but
Oh, yeah.
so
Months, years.
what would you like to leave as not final, but something for our viewing and listening audience to think about in this area? And I'm not going to repeat any nouns that become adjectives, that become verbs. What would you like to tell us in your the closing words that we should be mindful of actively?
I would say stay curious, lead with inquisition, and the technology is changing. The technology will change. There will be those who will be on the applying the technology. We also need those who are building and developing and
Mm-hmm.
owning, we'll say, the technology. We need all ends. So I would say don't get so caught up in all the different thing, the way in which the winds are blowing, which sometimes can feel in all different directions, but staying true to the course. I always say that the sign of a true intellect is one who can transcend all disciplines. So don't feel confined to one particular discipline or another, and just be open minded and have fun with it. People can go online and without even creating an account. You can do
Mm-hmm.
incognito mode and just play around to see what these things are. I always say it's hard to have an opinion about something if you don't understand what it is. So dive
Mm-hmm.
into learning, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got Microsoft Learn, Amazon has learning, LinkedIn Learning. What else? I mean, there's so many. Google has learning platforms as well. Dive
Mm-hmm.
in and learn these things, and just lead with curiosity, because we really will need all hands on deck to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to develop the technology responsibly, and also how do we apply it in a way that it augments what we do, just like the computer augments what we do,
Mm-hmm.
but that it doesn't cause harm either intentionally or unintentionally. So it will take all of us to figure out how to steward this. And if you're ever in DC, come on by the Mecca.
Well, we'll have to remember that. So we've been joined today with great excitement and enthusiasm. I'm talking to Dr. Talitha Washington at the Howard University in the Center of Applied Data Science and Analytics. Thank you for encouraging us to stay curious. I'm Kermit Payne, your host for LifeBeat, the podcast magazine. And we always encourage you to be kind to each other, to be kind to yourself, and as Dr. Washington has said, stay curious. Thank you, Dr. Washington.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
We would love to hear from you. Send your listener letters, questions, and topic requests to media@the1jg.com. LifeBeat the podcast is sponsored by One Joshua Group, your strategic source for engagement to improve life through better health, education, and information. To learn more, visit us at the1jg.com or follow our work on social media using hashtag 1JGCollabs. One Joshua Group, advancing access to healthcare and education by joining what you know with what we've learned.